A sermon is like a journey. It has a starting point, a destination, and important stopping points along the way. Now that you've formulated your big idea, you need to plan the rest of the sermon. The map you use for this plan is the outline, and the first decision you need to make about the outline has to do with the direction the sermon will take. Your choices are not infinite. There are three major directions you can take as you develop the idea in the sermon. You can use the outline to explain the sermon's idea, prove it, or apply the idea. Once you choose a direction, that direction will determine what you do with each of the sermon's main points. If you decide to explain the idea, each of the points should be stated as an explanation. If you choose to prove the idea, each point will be a proof. If your goal is to apply the idea, each of the points will be stated in the language of implication. There's an obvious rank between these three options. If your listeners don't understand the sermon's big idea, there's no point in trying to prove it. You need to use the message's main points to explain it to them. If they understand the idea but don't believe it, there's no point in stating the points as applications. Each of the points needs to be a proof. And if they understand the idea and believe it, then the obvious choice is to move in the direction of application. Each main point should be framed as an implication of the idea. All of the main points should move in the same direction. The bulk of the sermon, however, is made up of the things that you say about the main points. The same questions that you ask about the big idea should be asked of its main points. While the sermon's main points move in one direction, the development of each individual point may move in multiple directions. One main point may be explained, another might be proved, and each main point should include application so that you are applying throughout the sermon. As you develop your main points, what you say about each will have a dual focus. First, you'll want to anchor the assertion of your point in the biblical text. What do you have to say about the passage to explain or prove the point to your audience? How does the text support the application that you make for that point? Second, you'll want to talk to your audience about the implication that the point has for them. The basic rhythm of the development of the sermon's main points is first toward the text and then toward your audience. What you have to say about the text and its implications is in turn influenced by the purpose you have for that particular point. While the stereotype of a sermon is often 3 points in a poem, the number of main points your sermon has is not fixed. The specific number is generally determined by 2 important factors. First, how many points do you need to adequately accomplish your purpose? And second, how much time do you have? Between these two, time is probably the most limiting factor. For this reason, the structure of most sermons usually involves between 2 to 4 points. The sermon's organizational map also includes illustrations. Illustrations serve several functions in the message. One of the things they do is shed light on the truth of the text. You can use illustrations as examples of the truth principles of the sermon or as analogies which explain the unknown with the known. Illustrations also set the stage for application. They can be used to show what an application looks like in action. Illustrations are a good way to raise the need in the sermon's introduction, or to motivate the audience to respond in the conclusion. A contemporary illustration can help to bridge the gap between the ancient culture of the text and the modern culture of the listener. As you map the message, you want to think about ways to link its various components together. How will you move from the introduction to the main points in the outline? How will you move smoothly from talking about the biblical text to its implications for the audience? How will you introduce your illustrations and link them to what you've been talking about? The tool that you use to do this is the transition. Transitions are short statements that link what you have just said to what you're about to say. They remind the audience of where you've been in the message and give a preview of where you're going. Transitions are often introduced with rhetorical questions that you don't expect the audience to answer out loud. These transitions should be combined with some simple techniques to help reinforce the ideas of the message. 2 of the most important of these techniques are repetition and restatement. Restatement is not the same thing as repetition. When you repeat something, you say it more than once in the exact same words. In restatement, you say the same thing, but in different words. Don't overuse repetition and restatement. Reserve the use of repetition and restatement for key words, thoughts, and ideas in your message. 2 of the most important stops in the journey of the sermon are the introduction and conclusion. Each has a slightly different purpose, but they both have the same focus. They focus primarily on the audience. The purpose of the introduction is to raise the primary need that the message will address and to introduce the text. The sermon's big idea, or at least the question behind the subject, are heard in the introduction. The conclusion often includes a review of the major stops along the way in the message, but its chief purpose is to call the audience to respond. During the conclusion, you should give the audience an opportunity to respond to God based on what they've heard. Whether you preach from a manuscript, a basic outline, or don't use any notes at all, it's essential to know where you want to go in the message and how you plan to get there. The sermon's outline provides the roadmap that will enable you to reach your destination.